Personally, I don't drive for two reasons, two main ones. One is liability, and two is cost. For me personally, my priorities would be business, spend that money on business first, and at the very bottom would be the vehicle. All I have is a bus pass, and I get around to everywhere I need to go completely fine. Hey, welcome back. Before I started recording, I had some mic issues. The battery died. This was my first time using it, so I didn't know how long the battery was actually going to last. Good thing there were two mics, so problem resolved. Let's get started. TeatimeTuesday, number 3? 4? I don't even remember. I think this is number 4. I waited for the tea to cool down and it's still kinda hot. But today, there's a little surprise in this video. See if you can spot it related to tea. The topic for today is, should you as a young person in, let's say, your 20s, drive a car? This was inspired by the cold weather yesterday. I was waiting for the bus in -18 weather, and my mind just thought about this topic a lot, and I decided to make a video. Also, to debate my friend Sydney, who asked me what's a controversial hot take I have, and we disagreed about cars. Get some more tea. Let's go over the pros first. Look, I get it. Having a car just saves you so much time and gives you extra convenience. That's the main argument I hear everywhere. I don't disagree with that, but I have some thoughts on that. So that's the main one. And then some of the other side reasons are comfort and privacy, accessibility. There's some places that you just can't go by bus, and you can use it as a storage vehicle. Okay, now let's talk about the cons. The biggest con obviously is cost. I mean, a vehicle is expensive. Not only that, you have to deal with insurance, traffic, parking, and the hidden cost, which is depreciation. And finally, liability of driving a giant metal box. And of course, environmental, but that's pretty subjective, so let's not talk about that one on this list. So, for a cost of owning a vehicle and driving it, I did some research, and the figures are as follows. Let's say me hypothetically wanted to get insurance for a car. For basic insurance, for someone who is inexperienced, young driver, male, our insurance cost here in Calgary would set us back between $2,000 to $3,500 a year. This is not factoring in if you get into an accident. For gas, assuming you drive around the average of 15,000 kilometers a year, that costs around $1,500 for a small, medium-sized vehicle. And you know, we in Alberta, we love gas guzzlers, right? So that cost is probably higher. Then you have your maintenance costs like oil changes, any repairs, winter tire changes. That'll probably set you back $1,000 a year. So just having this car you're looking at, between all those ongoing costs, $5,000 annually, roughly. But then you also have to look at the actual cost of a vehicle, right? I remember my friend, she was in some financial trouble because she extended her financials by purchasing a vehicle for, I think it was $3,000, and drove it across province just so she could drive here because she thought it was a really good deal. And to be honest, it was a good deal, but that's not a small chunk of change to just hand over. And then when you have the vehicle, you never think about the depreciation. On average, as soon as you drive off the parking lot with a new car, assuming, that vehicle immediately loses, I think, like 15% of its sticker tag price. And then the depreciation slows down over the next 10 years or so. But on average, the statistics say that you lose about 50% of your vehicle market value in the first 5 years of driving it. I know we had crazy times when there were logistic supply chain shortages that caused used cars to be sold at an increased price, but that's, in my opinion, very rare. So, you know, if you take a long-term look at this, over driving 5 years, you could easily spend, I'm assuming, probably around $20,000-$30,000 on a vehicle so that you can get to places. Also, that you can complain about traffic and accidents and having to pay for parking everywhere. So you gotta ask, does the pros outweigh the cons in this case? Okay, let's talk about the pros, since I covered my perspective on the cons. For the pros of accessibility, I have nothing to add there. If you live in an area where there are no frequent buses or just plain inaccessible, I get it. It's tough. But I would argue that most people, especially young people, they live in a pretty heavily densely populated place. I, for example, live in Calgary, and there's got to be like hundreds of routes spanning the whole city. I also want to say that as I'm growing up and I see people around me getting their own vehicles, you might call me a bum for this, but I'm the only person in my friend group to not own a car and drive. But what does that mean? That means, in the worst case scenario, I just bum a ride off of them. Especially since we were gonna go hang out anyways, so they wouldn't mind. That leads into convenience and time. A lot of people make the argument that in order to get anywhere, you need to drive. I would agree for cities like Edmonton, where everything is too sprawled out and you just have to drive. But in Calgary, I don't think that is actually the case. Everyone acts like their time is so precious, but if you have good time management skills, I feel that you can definitely make that bus to make it work. What I think actually happens is people use driving as a crutch, they factor that into their transportation, that they can sleep in an extra half an hour or an hour and then just last minute speed to wherever they're going. But I've never had any issues not making it to the places I need to go for the day. It's just a matter of preparation. For example, I run 5 different businesses, and if anything, I should be making the argument that I can justify any sort of cost related to transportation because you can write it off. However, all I have is a bus pass, and I get around to everywhere I need to go completely fine. When I travel, for example, most of the city's public transportation is relatively easy to figure out, and Google Maps is your friend. So for me, it's never bothered me from a time factor wise. Yes, there are times when I wish I could just hop in a car and get to wherever I need to go, right? For example, those cold snap days. But having lived here for 17 years, I gotta be honest, you kind of forget those once you're over and done with them, right? It's not like being a little cold will permanently damage you. Like I've been through so many Canadian winters where I had to go drop off Annie, or back in uni when I had to get to school and the bus just didn't come. But those days are so far and few between. For the most part, the bus system is reliable, especially because they upgraded their transit app to show like 80 to 90% of the time live tracking of the bus that you're waiting for. And in the absolute worst case scenario, you can probably just Uber. And if there are no Ubers, then you're truly in a freakish situation, and maybe you're better off not leaving the house. You know what I'm saying? On the front of comfort and privacy, I get it. Sometimes there are days where you literally see people smoking crack on the train. This weekend, for example, I was just sitting there minding my own business, reading my daily newsletters, playing my little game, and then a group of 5 to 6 crackheads came in, and they were passing those aluminum pouches, and they had like a crack pipe in their hand, and they had crack tubing for some reason. I don't even know why you would need that, but there they are. We pull up to Sun Alta station. No, it was West Kirby. We pull up to West Kirby station, and the train driver had to walk past, and he spotted them. I assume someone reported them, but the train was stalled for 10-15 minutes while they're trying to kick this group of crackheads off the train. And I was sitting right there, so I was like, yeah, please don't confuse me for them. But I want to say those situations are pretty rare, and honestly they have systems in place to deal with them, so it is what it is. But on the flip side of that, I think it's pretty lonely just driving, for example, from your home to work and back, and to uni and back, or just, doing your daily commute in your car. Ever since COVID happened, everyone's kind of withdrawn from any social interactions, right? But I kind of like it, when I'm taking the bus and I see familiar faces on the bus, it gives me like a good feeling to know that there are other people who are sharing this experience with me on good days and bad days. And I think if you're just in a car, you just don't get that side of the story. Having been to most corners of Calgary by bus, delivering random stuff or picking it up, I like it. I don't mind spending some extra time on the train or the bus. Sometimes you'll even see your friends, right? This is how people do it. I didn't know biscuits go so good with pizza. Personally, I don't drive for two reasons, two main ones. One is liability, and two is cost. For liability, it is scary to think what you could do with a giant metal box hurling down the freeway at 100 kilometers per hour. I've seen some pretty horrific accidents. To someone personally, even, my dad was coming home from work and this 80-year-old guy passes out due to a random medical condition with his foot fully on the gas, rear ends my dad while they were driving on the underfoot. And last year we finally sorted out all the legal proceedings, but basically we got no damages for something so awful like that, right? The guy was going like 140 while my dad was going 100. So that's someone else hitting you, but imagine if you were the reason a big accident happened. People get hurt, or even worse, they pass away, right? I don't want that kind of liability on my hands, so I'd just be on the bus minding my own business. Back in uni, sometimes the bus rides were pretty long, so I had enough time to just think about things and study even. But if you are behind the wheel, you don't have that luxury. Every moment could be life or death. It's just society normalized the whole driving thing, so everyone is just used to it. But every single day you hop in a vehicle, your chances of death increases. So I'm happy not having that on my hands. And honestly, I cannot wait for autonomous driving to be widespread, so I can just buy a pass and forget about all of the responsibilities of driving and owning a car. Let's talk about the cost. In my head, this is related to almost like delayed gratification. Let's just say, ignoring the cost of the vehicle, let's just say you spend $5,000 on a vehicle. To me, that's $5,000 that I'm not putting towards my businesses, for example. And I think that's a shame. And you can do other things with that money too. You could eat a lot of meals for $5,000. Let's just say average meal is what, $50 for two people? You could have 100 meals across the whole year in lieu of your vehicle costs. Or you could put it into investments. Not saying you have to get crazy returns, but the more you have to compound as a young person, the more it'll be worth in the future. You know what I'm saying? Also, go to a really nice place for $5,000. Pretty sure that covers flights if you get a all-inclusive resort. If you want to go to a country with cheap cost of living and cheap food, you could get away for probably 2 to 4 weeks on a $5,000 budget. And all you're sacrificing is, some convenience, comfort, and privacy. So in conclusion, should you as a young person be owning and driving a car? Based on my personal experiences and opinion, I would say no. I think society glorifies it. Everyone sells it to you as a dream of freedom, but you are actually giving up a lot to get that freedom. Of course, you should evaluate based on your own circumstances and everything I said in this video. But if you are on the fence and this car would stretch you financially, honestly, I would just say grit your teeth, work hard, and in the future you can revisit, right? For me personally, my priorities would be business, spend that money on business first, go towards buying a house, having fun with my friends and family, and vacations, and at the very bottom would be the vehicle. That would be kind of like a luxury spending for me, and it would be more of a want rather than a need. So for me, very clear choice. I'm gonna choose not to drive, and in the rare circumstances that I do need a ride, a ride from my family or Uber, or even call up a close friend, because everyone seems to have a car but me, But yeah, that is my thoughts on driving and whether or not you should own a car. I hope you enjoyed this episode. See you next week.
Good morning. Minus work today?
Today, I actually did way more back than I anticipated. So 9 exercises, chin-ups, lat pull down, seated rows, shoulder shrugs, lower back extension, rows. This footage is so funny. 2,000 meters, 1 arm row. I actually maxed it out at 75 pounds. Pull-ups, and finally face pulls.
There's a bird. Just got done in the gym, dropped off 3 shipments. Had a crazy back day today. When I woke up and got to the gym, my CNS was not feeling it. For some reason, even though I did chest yesterday, my back was sore. But no excuses. I made it to the gym. Originally, I was just going to do some light back exercises for volume. But once I got started, things started to feel good. So ended up doing so many exercises today. Got a really nice back workout. I know I'm gonna be sore tomorrow. But yeah, what a difference a day makes. Yesterday was minus 18. Today, minus 3. It's a little windy, but nice enough for me to walk home. So I'm enjoying the weather.
Hey, I almost forgot about portfolio update. There was a lot of action today. Woke up, bought some Uber to add to the portfolio. Then I saw news for QIMC. They showed very promising drilling results this morning. So I kind of FOMO'd and I bought some shares at 0.135. but then started falling. I don't know why, maybe it's manipulation, but my conviction was strong enough to where I sold 3,000 shares of IDK to add some more QIMC at a much better 0.115. I diversified away from IDK because IDK is also a large holder of QIMC, so having those two overlap would be kind of redundant. This also means that we had our very first sell of the portfolio for a gain of $7.50. I didn't want to sell it, but had to reposition due to QIMC, so that is the reason. Also, at the end of the day, ELF took a beating, so started a small position in that for the portfolio. But yeah, if you notice the different layout, there were too many buys and sells as we set up our portfolio, so I separated them into two sheets, one for buys and sells and this one for positioning. As you can see, we are completely out of cash in our Canadian portfolio, and we're sitting about 40% cash for USD. For the year, we are currently we're outpacing the S&P, but you'll be able to see this position side every single day. I think I'm mostly done building out positions for now, but depending on market conditions, we will reevaluate, obviously. So yeah, see you tomorrow.